In our All-Star Roundtable this week, Dale Butland, the Communications Director for Innovation Ohio, a progressive think tank, and Republican analyst Terry Casey back with us once again. Terry, we'll start with you. Your party this week, they gave a victory to Mitt Romney in Ohio, but they sure didn't hand him a big win. Were you surprised at that margin of victory?
Well, I was doing a radio interview with an LA CBS station, and I mentioned the finish in Ohio election night was almost like something Hollywood drama writers would like, because it looked like Santorum was going to win by 3 points. It kept narrowing. Yeah. He ultimately won by 1 percentage point. But the most fascinating thing is, because a lot of the delegates were done by the 16 congressional districts, it actually ends up that Romney got 38 delegates to 25 for Santorum, because a number of the districts, Santorum had no delegates filed, or he had an insufficient number. So
yeah, some of it was just inefficiency on the part of his campaign.
Well, in defense, in December when they had to do this, virtually nobody knew of Santorum, and it was hard to get people to even agree to be a delegate, let alone get signatures. So on one hand, Santorum has come from almost nowhere, being an afterthought on the very end of the debates, to being a major runner. But his difficulty right now is Gingrich stays in the battle, which kind of divides up some of the conservative votes. So it's clearly going to be Romney, but it's going to take a lot longer.
But isn't this all symptomatic that Romney still can't deliver that knockout punch that we keep saying it over and over again? It's as if even his own supporters, it's like grudging support, like, well, all right, we'll vote for Romney.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Mitt Romney won Ohio by the skin of his shiny white teeth, but he is the weakest front runner on the Republican side since Bob Dole in 1996, and there's actually polling evidence to back that up. Right now, 40% of the voters have an unfavorable view of Mitt Romney, compared to just 28% who have a favorable view. Now, I know Terry would like to say, oh, but all that's going to go away once the primaries are over and his opponents stop beating on him. But the truth is, whether you look at John Kerry in 2004, Bob Dole in 96, once voters have a negative view personally of a candidate, that tends not to go away.
But can't we also say that a lot of people now have a negative view of Barack Obama, more so than would be expected, this far in a first-term president's presidency?
Actually, no. The Wall Street Journal NBC poll, which was just out this week, has President Obama's favorable numbers back up to 50%, which is usually the magic number. Now, could that change? Of course it could. But the truth is, we got the stock market going up, we have housing starts up, we've got
unemployment down,
we have consumer confidence up, unemployment down. This week they're going to announce another creation of 200,000 jobs in the private sector. The truth is, there has never been one time in American history where an incumbent president has been turned out of office and been denied re-election if unemployment's been falling in the year of his election.
And do you agree with that, Terry? I mean, this could be the year, though. It's been such a bouncing back and forth image for Barack Obama, but economically, everything at this point does seem to be going in his direction.
Well, not everything. There's this little thing called gasoline that's now approaching $4. It could be to $6 to $7 a gallon, and it was only $1.85 when he became president. The price of gasoline to real people in Columbus, Ohio, Central Ohio, is a big chunk of their budget, and it's going to grow a lot higher. And Dale mentions polling. In the polling that came out last week, the Ohio poll, Barack Obama, among independents, and that's one of the key categories you got to look at, he was 42% favorable, 52% unfavorable for the president. And any time a president, especially with a key group like independents, is that negative, that deep in the hole, that's a tough problem. So I'm not saying he can't win, but we remember in 2008, Barack Obama, it went down to June 6th, when Hillary and Barack Obama, it looked like they were going to kill each other, a deadlock Democrat convention. They'll never get it together. Obviously, it came together. So I hope you keep celebrating early, Dale.
But the difference, Terry, is that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, neither one of them had the kind of negatives that Mitt Romney has now. That's point one. Point two is Barack Obama beat Hillary Clinton your guy can't even put away such ragtag operations as Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich, for crying out loud.
Well, I was watching the national news on Tuesday night, and they said he won 6 of the 10 primaries, and he did very well in the delegates in Ohio, so he's winning. And whether it's football or basketball, whether you win by 1 point or 10 points, a win's a win.
Well, Rick Santorum right now is really heavily going after those southern states this week that lean conservative. He wants to kind of hand an embarrassing loss to Newt Gingrich. Do you think this could be the week that Newt Gingrich finally says, okay, I'm going to give up the ghost here?
Well, the worst nightmare for Rick Santorum is that Newt Gingrich keeps going on and on and on. And if you watched his speech in Georgia, I mean, Newt is a very interesting guy with a lot of ideas, but he does love to hear himself talk, and I don't think he's getting out of the race anytime soon.
Well, one thing that settled this week, if we can move on a little bit, but Josh Mandel is now, of course, the Republican candidate who's going to go up against the incumbent Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown this November. We can expect, I think, to see some nasty ads. Sherrod Brown has already been getting a lot of negative ads that were funded by the Chamber of Commerce, but can we expect to see from both sides in this campaign kind of a negative battle to who can make the other look the worst?
Well, I think part of it's going to be all about, I mean, Sherrod Brown's been in Congress 19 years, and look at what the debt is gone while he's been in Congress. I mean, he's been a U.S. Senator in the last 6 years. Yep. It hasn't been good on the debt, on fuel prices, energy things, and he actually was the 60th and deciding vote on Obamacare that was rejected by voters all over Ohio, but he was the 60th and deciding vote, and his big complaint on Obamacare, it wasn't liberal enough, it didn't spend enough, it didn't have the government controlling enough in health care.
First of all, anybody, since there were 60 votes, you can say anybody was the 60th vote. But that isn't even the
on
point.
Military aircraft.
Look, here's the reality. You will have a relentlessly negative campaign from Josh Mandel. He has a lot of money, but as his 2 appearances on this show has, I think, amply demonstrated, he's not ready for prime time. This guy doesn't know the issues, he can't talk about the issues, and because he can't talk about his own record in the Office of Treasurer, he's going to try to slime Sherrod's. But it's not going to work. Sherrod has spent 6 years building a solid record of standing up for the middle class. Josh Mandel is not even showing up for work at the job he currently has. You say Sherrod was in office for 19 years? Josh Mandel wasn't in his current office for 19 minutes before he started running for the next job.
You know, that has been a problem for him, a problem for me, getting him to answer the question of whether or not there is an issue for voters who put him into the office and within 2 months he was ready to run for another office. Do you think that's going to be a weakness, and do you think he needs to find a way to address that question?
Well, they use that spin, but remember, this is a guy that enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2000. When his country calls, and part of the thing, there were a lot of office holders, Mary Taylor's lieutenant governor, John Husted, who might have been first in line to run for the U.S. Senate, but for different reasons, they said no. And to a certain extent, the party said, we can't let Sherrod Brown, with his record, all of his liberal votes, go unchallenged. We need somebody to run against him. And Josh, just like a Marine, he said, the country said, I need me to do the work, I'll be there. And one of the things to keep in mind in the polling, Sherrod Brown is at 98% name ID. He's well known, but he can't get above, on favorability, above 49%. Josh Mandel still is not that well known, but he's within striking distance, I think about a 10% margin difference. But Sherrod's record isn't just Democrat or liberal, it's really, really liberal in terms of health care and so many other things.
Let me just say this. In the spirit of Mitt Romney and Rick Perry, I will make you a bet. Now, I can't bet you $10,000 like Mitt Romney does, but I'll bet you a six-pack. How's that? that
might even be able to be handled by the budget of this show.
May I say one other thing with regard to Mitt Romney before we leave that subject, because I think it's ironic. This kind of Richie Rich act that Mitt Romney's been on
like
with all this, well, you know, that's an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy and the rest of the Kennedys were all very wealthy people. They were born into wealth, but they had they had an empathy for the average person that Mitt Romney clearly doesn't have. When he talks about his wife's 2 Cadillacs, all his friends that own NASCAR teams, just this week he said on Super Tuesday in Boston, he said, you know, it's good to be home. where I can get my favorite home-cooked meal, chicken marsala. Now, I mean, really.
Hey, I make that.
But here's, a lot of us like it, but the average guy doesn't go home to chicken marsala usually as a home-cooked meal. But here's my point. Here's the irony. Mitt Romney, with all these gaffes, which have shown him to be the poster child for the 1%, is turning a perceived strength, namely his success as a business person, into a liability.
Terry, we'll give you the last word. We're almost out of time.
Well, if I was in Boston, they've got a lot of great Italians and ethnic food. A man enjoying good food in Boston, there's nothing wrong with that.
All right.
Even if you take your 2 Cadillacs to go buy it, right?
We thank both of you for being with us again, and we'll be right back. Next week on The Spectrum, we'll tell you about a new mission from AARP to talk directly to voters about issues like Medicare and Social Security. And, of course, our All-Star Roundtable on NBC4's The Spectrum.